What is the stupidest thing you've done just to show you could do it? In 2001, my sister got me a Sony phone, a tiny little thing with a flip-down front. She worked in a phone shop and got discount. On the box, it said the phone was waterproof, and there were tiny rubber seals in places. I believed them. At the pub where I worked, this aspect came up in conversation. Some guy said the phone couldn't be waterproof, and that showerproof was probably more accurate. Remembering the box, I argued the point, and dropped my phone into a pint of beer in an effort to prove it. I was wrong. Brutal but well-earned life lesson. Walked through the brush of our tree line to get a football to prove it wasn't poison ivy. I did it. I got the football. It was poison ivy. I once did something similar, but it turns out I'm immune to poison ivy. The rest of my friends, not so much. In grade school, maybe age 11 or 12, I had these cheap jeans. I figured out that I could flex my belly and pop the button open. Found this funny, and guy friends in class got a laugh too. One of them turns to a girl. "Hey girl, check out what OP can do." I flexed my belly and let out a huge fart while the button popped open. She turned away, my buddy laughed, and I never did this trick again. Yeah, something similar happened to me after a final in 8th grade. Me, my buddy, and a girl across from us were done our tests, so we were doing dumb shit to pass the time. One example was holding our breath and making our faces turn red. In a dead silent classroom, I let out a high-pitched fart, and I swear to God, my soul left my body. It wasn't low and fast, so you could pass it off as a chair, no sir. Everyone knew I just ripped ass. Gotta love it. Won a donut eating contest. In 10 minutes, I ate about 17 donuts, and seconds before the time was up and I had all my thoughts set on having a hearty cleansing puke. A man who wasn't even taking part yelled that throwing up afterwards should disqualify you. Somebody counted that I took in a few days' worth of calories. My appetite came back 2 days after. Jumped illegally over the China-Myanmar border and back again. Well, this blew up. This was in 2002. I was in China legally in the town of Ruli, Yunnan province. Across a small stream and 2 thin strings of barbed wire was the city of Musei, White Elephant City, Myanmar, which was closed to foreigners at the time. A group of opium addicts were smoking in the thick bushes growing near the border and invited me over for a chat. I saw no border guards were within line of sight of me, so I did. We had an interesting chat in a mixture of English and Chinese. Later, I wandered into the closest narrow street lined with dilapidated white wooden buildings, with bearded men in sarongs wandering around. I bought a Burmese noodle dish. No alcohol available in that state. Then I hightailed it back to the same crossing spot, and over about 90 minutes after I first went over. Ruili, China is, or at least was, a lawless borderland, with all the vices that lawless border towns typically attract. My crossing was the least of the local authorities' worries. I wouldn't repeat it or recommend it to anyone, though. Not me, but one of my former coworkers told us about the time he ate a tub of butter on a dare. He made it about halfway through and had to throw up. He said what came out was neon yellow. For the next month, the smell of butter made him gag, and when he perspired, he could still smell it. You'd think he'd learn, but he attempted the butter tub challenge a second time. This time, he paced himself and actually finished the whole thing. He said the screw-up, though, was eating it before having to catch a train. While he was waiting, his heart was racing, and he felt so amped up, he did push-ups and jumping jacks at Penn Station. Punched a giant plate glass window out of a jewelry shop in Palm Springs when I was 21. Total drunk dick energy. Window slashed my hand wide open, and all I remember is seeing my buddy sprinting away when the store alarm started blaring. My other friend picked me up in front of the store. Blood was literally spraying out of my hand all over his back seat, and he got me to hospital and into ICU. When emergency room doctor pulled out 6-inch needle, I passed out cold. Woke up about 12 hours later with a throbbing headache. Bandages up hand. Finals started the next week and I couldn't write with my left hand, so had to use my right. Also took me a good year to get my dexterity back to play guitar. Total asshole move on my part. I downed half a fifth of Jaeger in one go because everyone said I could not do it. Ended up falling in a river outside my apartment, having a smoke midwinter in Michigan. Washed down about a quarter mile before I could grab onto something to get out. Made my way back home. Nobody had any idea until I walked in soaking wet in frozen clothes. It was about that time I passed the F out on the floor. Looking back, they probably should have taken me to hospital. I was already a little tipsy from drinking at my brother's rehearsal dinner before his wedding. We went back to my parents' house to continue drinking and party. I had been drinking rum and coke while my parents and husband did a shot of Fireball. Well, apparently, the way I looked at the bottle of rum, my dad says, "You could do it." I took that as a challenge of him saying I couldn't. So we took out a wine glass meant for like dessert wines or Baileys and filled that sucker up, so more than just a normal shot's worth, and I took a shot of straight Bacardi. It was awful. I met a girl online and we were talking about how much personal information was on the internet. She was skeptical, so I proved my point. I knew her last name and roughly what part of the state she lived in, and that was all it took to get her address and send her a Google Street View screenshot of her house. Scared the bejesus or of her, and she blocked me immediately. We've been married for 5 years and are expecting our second child. Ate around 50 rolls of sushi at an all-you-can-eat sushi place. It was one of my first lunch outings with coworkers at my very first full-time job, and they took me to an all-you-can-eat sushi buffet. I had the brilliant idea of buying a whole bunch of sushi so I could share. I didn't realize until after I was brought this massive plate of rolls that the buffet didn't allow you to share. What you ordered, you had to eat it, and they watched to make sure you did. Also, if you didn't eat everything off your plate, you had to pay $1.50 for each roll uneaten. So after a while, everyone else finished their food, and I was left with about 35 or so rolls, and my manager asked if I thought I would be able to finish. I had this weird shot of anxiety at that moment, that I would appear weak in front of my new coworkers if I didn't. And that's where I had this second brilliant ass idea of impressing everyone with my newfound competitive level eating prowess and power. Ate through a disgusting amount of sushi in about 10 minutes. I think I forced down vomit like 3 times. Suffice to say, needless display of dominance worked. I had established my title in the group as the one who eats grotesque amounts of food. It felt like this expectation I was supposed to meet every now and then when we would go out to lunch to a buffet. For example, we'd go to an Indian buffet once a week or so, and I'd have 3 or 4 heaping plates of food. In 2 months, I had put on almost 40 pounds in, and I felt absolutely horrible. Thankfully, over time, I was able to build a genuine form of confidence with my coworkers. The pressure of being the competitive eater of lunchtime waned, and I was able to lose most of the weight I put on. But it was one of the worst things I had ever done to my body for the sake of getting people to like me. I was a high school freshman, like 14 years old, and at a lunch table full of seniors I didn't know. A bag of dried ghost peppers was being passed around, and everyone was too scared to try one. My dumb ass decided it would make me look cool if I tried one, so I put the entire thing in my mouth with nothing to drink nearby. Couldn't have been more than 2 seconds before I involuntarily coughed it out onto the table. Pitiful. It's not just regular spiciness, that shit hurts, especially when the spiciest thing you'd ever eaten at that point was black pepper. And the girl I was mainly doing it to impress was already looking away and talking to someone else. That almost hurt worse, and I don't even like girls that much. When I was 18, I'm 34 now, I went from not exercising at all, not walking at all, not doing any kind of physical activity in my entire life, to an exhausting 14 miles hike with an altitude gain of 3,000 meters or so in one day, and do it the way back to the next day, 28 miles in 24 hours, just because I told this friend who was an avid hiker that it wasn't a big deal to hike any mountain. Somehow I managed to go ahead of the group to hide from him how exhausted I was, ran out of water, almost collapsed, couldn't handle the muscle pain while sleeping. When going back down the mountain, all I thought while on the trail was how did I got myself into that and that I was never going to do something like that again. In the end, I arrived back home dead, unable to walk, to sit, or to stand, having a hard time walking, endless muscle pains and rotten knees. But life changes us. When I recovered months or weeks later, I started hiking, and haven't stopped since back then. Still with rotten knees, I still not exercising at all, and yes, I keep asking myself why and saying I won't do it again while on a trail to just get back home and plan the next hike. I drank underage only one time while in high school. I was 17, and we were drinking that super cheap vodka that comes in a 3-liter plastic bottle. I was hammered, as it was the first time I'd ever drank, and I drank hard and fast to impress the older people at the party. Well, for some reason I decided the way to prove my ability to hang was to stand on my head. I was pretty good at it sober. I did this numerous times and each time just fell on my head. Like really hard. I'm very lucky I didn't hurt myself. I have no idea why standing on my head was proof I could hang in my mind. Freshman year of high school, my friends and I are all waiting for the bus. My one friend, who in particular was taking extra tech classes to be a vet and was very passionate about animals, reaches into her bag and realizes she has a baggie full of dog treats she brought with her out of habit when she wasn't going to the tech place that day. She jokingly offered them to me since I was kind of the food trash can of the group. I said sure with a laugh and actually ate the baggie of treats while we waited for the bus with my friends laughing and being like, "What the hell?" Surprisingly, they weren't terrible. They tasted like unflavored goldfish crackers with a strong aftertaste of meat of unknown origin. When I was in elementary, my class went on a camp out at a lodge in the mountains. We were having burritos for dinner at the cafeteria, and they somewhat stupidly let kids have full access to hot sauce. My friend told me he'd call me boss if I put the whole bottle of hot sauce on my burrito, and being the stupid kid I was, I did. So, eventually all the kids in my grade stranded around me while I wolfed down this nuclear bomb of a burrito, and I finished. My mouth was on fire. I drank 2 mini cartons of milk and felt better. This isn't even where the problem started. The next day, we were supposed to go sledding and snowboarding down the mountain, but I woke up with a burn in my stomach. I couldn't move, but I somehow managed to get to the bathroom. A few words to describe how this felt. Fire? In the hole? Even after taking a massive one, I didn't feel better and had to miss out on the sledding and snowboarding. If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a new upload.